Hi, are you looking for a new sewing machine? My name's Denise and I've bought 8 sewing machines in 8 years, so I've made lots of mistakes. But I put 5 points in place when I bought my last 3, and I've actually got 3 sewing machines I absolutely love, all for different reasons. So I want to share these points with you so you can end up with a machine that you love as well. Point 5 is really important, something I'd never considered before, so keep tuned to the end at point 5. I've also got a funny story to share, and I have got some questions along the way that it'd be great if you can drop some comments in the boxes below. Anyway, let's get started. Just to give you a little intro about me and my sewing history, I started sewing when I was 4 years old. It was late 60s. My gran had a vintage Singer sewing machine and my mum had a very big Brother machine. It was really heavy. I can still remember how smoothly it sewed. I can remember the sound of it and I can remember the smell of the oil. So it's really strange what you remember as a child. Growing up, I was a hobbyist sewer. I used Frister Rossmanns, Brothers, Genomes. I've tried all different types of machines. I've loved every one that I've used. They've always been sort of entry level. Nothing sort of more than that, but they've always done what I've wanted them to do and I've been really happy with them. And then pre-COVID I decided that I hadn't sewn for 10 years, I wanted to go back into it, and this is where my journey began. And so I want to share these steps with you because it would be great if you can end up with a machine that you love like I do with mine. So let's get on to point 1. So what sewing machine should I buy? Well, I've gone through 8 different machines, from entry level right the way through to combination embroidery, sewing machine units, and I love sewing so much in the end that I've actually decided to sew for my business and going down a more commercial route, which I'm going to discuss in a little while. So I have used a lot of machines. I'm not an expert, but I understand the features on a lot of them. I'm more a quilter. So with regards to dressmaking and accessories, I know a little bit about those, which we'll go into, but I can definitely tell you what features I feel work for me really well, and therefore you might find they work for you equally in what you want to do. Maybe you've already got sewing machines and you've maybe got quite a big size machine already and you want to go bigger again, or maybe you're starting sewing and you've had an entry machine and you want to go up, or maybe you've not sewn at all. So it's understanding what you want to do in your machine, where you're going to go with it. Are you starting at sewing but you want to go on a sewing journey, in which case self-limiting yourself is maybe not the best way to go, but obviously you've got your budget. So hopefully these points is going to help you to work through exactly what you need within your budget to maximize everything that you can do with a machine. Knowing whether you are into quilting or you're a seamstress, you want to do free motion or bag making, curtain making, or whether you want an embroidery module as well, it would be really interesting to understand before you start the process. So for me, I've got all different types of machines, and I'm going to tell you exactly what I find really, really useful, and then hopefully you'll, by me saying about these types of features, you'll know whether that's something that you are going to be looking for as well. So let's get started. This is my Juki UX8. Love this machine. It's my newest machine out of all the machines I've got. I like the ability to have an extending table. Most of my machines actually sit down in tables, but this one doesn't, so having this extending table is lovely. I also like to have the really nice big throat space on a machine because I do quilt making, so it makes life a lot more easy for me. To be able to have things like the built-in walking foot that just drops down, the double height foot as well to get thicker fabrics under, the automatic needle threader and thread cutter are all the things that I now want from a machine. Things which I hadn't considered till I got one, and then I realised that actually they're so time saving and they do it so well that it saves me all of the inconvenience of having to do that. So also on these machines there are start-stop buttons, reverse buttons, they tie off in different ways. I've got a pivot foot which I absolutely love and couldn't do without, so that function is really important for me. I think accessories and understanding what accessories come with your machine is also really good. I like to have a stitch in the ditch foot because of quilting, and I've got another machine with a really big bias binding attachment, and that's really good to be able to do bindings for the quilts. I also have a built-in spool stand, or I buy one as an attachment to go on, because I use the bigger reels of thread, and therefore having something which is built to go on the machine is, I always find, a lot tidier, and it works with the machine instead of having a standalone. But I've never used a standalone. If you're happy with that, then that's absolutely fine. So with regards to the Juki, I do like the fact, because mostly I do straight stitches, and for me to be able to take the plate off and to actually change an internal component to a straight stitch and put a straight stitch plate on means that when I come to a point, the point doesn't get stuck down into the machine, so I don't need a leading piece of fabric. So again, that feature I find exceptionally useful, and if you're into more of that type of work, then that works really, really well. Also, with the different machines, you can get programmable foot pedals. So this one comes with a programmable foot pedal. You can do all sorts of things of tying off and thread cutting, and they can be really handy. I don't use mine for that, but a lot of people do like that feature in a foot pedal. There's knee lifts as well, which I don't use, and so having a knee lift, is that something that you would use? Is that a feature that you would make your life a lot easier? Right, if you're into free motion sewing, then the ability to drop the feed dogs on any machine is going to be vitally important. I would also say that look at the feet you get, because this one is a closed foot. You can get open feet, and you can also get plastic feet with little grids on that will actually help you with that. So the Bernina does a BSR foot. Absolutely love the Bernina for free motion. It means that it teaches me as I go along, and it beeps and tells me to slow down, and it's just an attachment that's easy to put onto the machine, and it makes free motion sewing so much easier for me. Now everybody's really different. Some people learn and don't have a problem without that, which is perfectly fine. So, but this is just another option for free motion sewing that you might not have considered. Right, if you're into stitches, decorative stitches, you're going to want a machine that is very stitch dense, and that it has a lot of alphabets and things for you. There are also machines that do 9mm feet, and machines that also allow you to do an extra long tacking stitch. Some machines do sideways stitches, decorative stitches, which are really cool, and I enjoy using those. It takes you into a whole new world of what kind of stitches you can do over and above the normal type of stitches. So maybe if you're into stitches, that's something that you can look at. If you're into machine embroidery and you're looking for a combination unit, I would definitely say get the machine with the biggest hoop. And I know you've probably heard this before, but from somebody who's actually invested in a machine and then had to go and get something bigger, and actually now I've got the Brother VR, so because I actually want to embroider for my business, and I've taught myself machine embroidery. So, you know, I've been down the route of sort of being restricted with the size of the hoop that I've actually had to be able to use. I would also make sure that you can plug in a USB or connect your computer, so that when you purchase a design, you want to put it onto your sewing machine to add to the stitch library, because if you're doing this all the time and you really love embroidery, you don't want to be self-limited by the amount of stitches that is on that machine. You want to be able to extend the range of stitches and actually enjoy that machine and be able to sew what you want on it. So I would definitely say look at those two options if you're going into machine embroidery. With regards to bobbins, you can get a bobbin that's a top loader, front loader, side loader. I've got all sorts of different machines with all of those options. I would say that if your machine is going to sink down into a table, ensure that you can get to the front of it or the side of it, because I've had one machine that I've had to lift out and it's been quite heavy because I couldn't get to the front to actually clean it, and I'm very meticulous on cleaning my machines every day before I use them, and therefore it was quite heavy to actually be able to do that. So you might need to think about where else are you going to place it if that's the machine that you are looking for. Also, it depends on what type of person you are with regards to maintenance. with regards to your bobbins. I've got a friend who brings a friend over to clean her machine for her because she just hates cleaning her machine so much, and therefore I would say if you're not into heavy duty cleaning, maybe having an oilless machine. The Juki is an oilless machine, the UX8, so it just means that you need to clean the fluff out, but then you'd need to do that actually for your maintenance, and to actually get the best out of your machine you need to make sure it's clean. If you're also like me and you don't mind oiling a machine as well and being really meticulously clean and thorough with something, then there's a lot more machines out there than you can look at. But it's all about ensuring that machine is clean, because otherwise you're not going to get the best out of it if you don't look after it. And these machines are an investment, and if you want them to sew properly, then obviously these things we need to do. So I would just keep that in mind when you're looking for a machine. There are a lot of machines out there that are heavily computerized, and sometimes they can be really quite complicated to really understand and use. So I think point 2 is going to be really useful for you to understand whether these type of machines are going to be easy, you're going to be able to understand how to set them up and use them and get the most out of them. So let's get on to point 2. Hi, just before we get on to point 2, I just wanted to ask if you could possibly subscribe. We're going to be releasing lots of videos on digitising, embroidery, lots of hints and tips on sewing. We've got Cricut and Cricut machines, so we've got all sorts of different things that we're going to release. And as we knew, you might not find us again, we might not crop up. So if you could subscribe, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So point 2 is about visiting your sewing dealership, and I recommend probably visiting more than one. If you've got one or two local to you, that would be brilliant. Now I couldn't because it was COVID, so I looked online and watched videos and ordered mine that way, and I was very lucky actually. So I would ring your dealership up and say I'd like to come in and I'd like to arrange to use the machines and for you to go through them with me, and you know, could we arrange a time slot please. This means then the dealer knows you're coming in, can set aside the time for you and go through the machines and look at alternative machines. So I would suggest taking along samples and swatches of fabric that you might use, especially if it's not your general cotton type materials, especially if it's something very unusual that you sew on a daily basis, because knowing what that actually sews like on a machine is going to be really important for you. It means when you go along to a dealer that you're going to see the machine and you're going to see the size of it, you can feel the weight of it. Maybe you're looking at this machine to take to classes or to travel with, in which case you might find it's too heavy, or you might find that it's actually not large enough. So to actually physically see something is always a much better solution. I know with me, big boxes would arrive and it was always a surprise at how big they were and how heavy they were, although then they're not moved, but you know, to go there and see it to start with is a good start. Then you can actually sit down and you can sew on that machine and you can get the feel for it. What I mean is you can feel how smooth it is. You can listen to the noise, you can see if there's any vibrations. All of these things are really important to know whether if that machine is going to suit you. You can also go through the setup of it, how easy it is to thread, how easy the computer is to use, or whether it's going to be too complicated for you and you're going to struggle to use it. Because the one thing you don't want to do is buy something that you're going to struggle to use, because you probably will put you off and it might just sit in the corner, and these are a really big investment. So to be able to go through all of that with your dealer is really, really important. To be able to go through all the accessories that you can get for each machine, because some may be completely different, to make sure you can get the accessories that you're after. Obviously you've maybe made your list so you know which ones you actually need, and then there'll be a few that they discuss that you'll think, oh actually that's a really good idea as well, and maybe hadn't considered. You can talk about the price of accessories, because some accessories can be really, really expensive. So is it going to be something you can afford moving forwards, or are you going to buy it and then not be able to afford to buy any of the accessories, so you want as much within the bundle of your purchase as possible? The dealer can also talk about your servicing, your extended warranties if they give them, your after sales. They can also discuss the maintenance with regards to showing you how to clean your machine and what you need to do to maintain it. So, and again, if you are not into a lot of cleaning, they can show you the oilless ones and discuss all of those options with you, and you can see whether the ones that you're shown are actually going to work with what you feel that you're able to do and look after with regards to your machine. So point 3, I would say, is to do reviews. I always look at reviews on my sewing machines before I buy them, because I couldn't go in to see a dealer, so I had to kind of do as much research as possible. Now, I don't always trust online reviews, that's just me, so I always like to find out from people who use the machines. So I've got Facebook, so I go onto Facebook and I join the user group. So when I was buying the Juki, I went onto the Juki group and I just said, I'm looking at buying the UX8, has anyone got one, anyone used them, what do you sew with, and how do you find your machine? And I was so confident at buying this machine after all the reviews from the people that used them that, you know, I haven't looked back, and it was the right decision, so I was really happy. So maybe going down that route. You could also try with sewing groups and ask people in sewing groups, or you could go into fabric shops. So they might not sell machines, but they've used them, and therefore they might know the machine that you're talking about or the brand that you're looking for. So it might be good to actually use that avenue to discuss what you're potentially looking at purchasing. So I will say I did have a really bad experience, only one though, of buying online. I ordered a machine, it came during COVID, it came on the morning, I unboxed it, used it lunchtime, I knew it was broken straight away. I mean, you do, don't you? I've emailed them and they basically said, well, I'm sorry, but because you've used it, we're not having it back. I was quite surprised at this, because it's a sewing machine, it's not an ornament, and therefore until you use it you don't know whether it is broken. And I had to go through trading standards, and eventually they gave me my money back. So, but all the other machines I've bought actually have been fantastic. In fact, the Brother VR I bought up north from me, they bought it down. It was not during lockdown, it was sort of during that COVID period, but they could travel. They brought it down to me, they set it up for me, they showed me how to use it. They were absolutely fantastic. They were, I mean, it was just amazing, the service they actually provided. So if you'd like to know who that is, I'll put it in the box below, so in the comment section. But apart from that, all my experiences have been really good. But I think just doing your research on who you're buying from as well is always a really good thing to do. Right, you've come to point 4 already. So point 4 is all to do with cost. And as we know, sewing machines are really expensive, and I feel that obviously you don't want to get one that is too small for you. You also don't want to get one with features that are way more than what you're going to need, because the more features you get, the more you pay for. But going through and seeing the dealer, if you're able to, is actually a good way of trying to ensure that that doesn't happen. Also, seeing a dealer, you might think that the machine you tried was the one you wanted, but once you've actually sewn with it, you think, oh, actually no, I don't enjoy this experience, and you have to look for an alternative, and they can help you with that. So making sure that you end up with your right machine is important, because of the cost of the machine. They are so expensive these days. It is an investment, and yeah, getting one you love is obviously a real priority. You can buy second-hand. Obviously, I'm not going to go into the second-hand market. It's not something I've had any experience of. I've sold machines, but I've never bought a second-hand. I'm sure there's more videos on YouTube that can actually help you with that. But what I would recommend is going back to your dealer and saying, you know, I would really love to buy this machine. Is there any possibility of any discount if I bought it today, or are there any accessories that you could throw in? I mean, every penny earned is a hard-earned penny, and I always think asking the question, they can always say no. You've obviously probably done research online and you know what the prices are, so maybe having that conversation is a good way moving forwards. So point 5 is all about the big one. It's about warranties. I've always ordered my sewing machines online, so I'm always surprised when they arrive at how big the boxes are and how heavy they are. So I've always had to ring my partner and say, could you possibly come home lunchtime and unpack them for me, and put them on the tables. So, and then I'm left with this great big box that I really don't know what I'm going to do with it. It usually goes in the outbuilding because it's usually pretty secure and dry, but just to be on the safe side, I'd always recommend, whatever you do with your box, is to photograph the serial numbers and to print it off and keep it in a safe drawer, so you know that you have a copy of that. I also would say, because I've had so many different sewing machines, I've got a white wool board, and I write down each of the sewing machines, what the warranty, the length of the warranty is, the starting date, and all the servicing schedules within that, because warranties can be 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 or whatever years long, and they can all be different for every machine. They could have servicing schedules within that as well, and you wouldn't want to go over your servicing schedule because it could invalidate your warranty, whether that be in time or stitch count. So, and time, as we know, flies by so quickly that yeah, you know, so you've got to be really, really careful. Also, ensure that you don't use domestic machines for commercial reasons, because that can invalidate your warranty. So be very careful what you're doing with your machines. I'm very fussy with my machines. I look after everything that I've got. Actually, I'll tell you my funny story now. Because my partner, this will make sense further along. So it was during COVID. I had the machines in the front bedroom at the time, and I had this lovely embroidery machine that came with the most delicate pair of curved scissors. They were so fine that I could get into the smallest little space and snip off the shortest piece of thread, and they were wonderful. They were very delicate, but they were durable. They weren't flimsy, and so I looked after these so well. And then one day I went into the sewing room one morning and I looked for them and I couldn't find them, and I was like, oh my goodness, they must have slipped down somewhere. And I was a bit panicky because I thought, I know where I usually put them and they're not there. Anyway, it was about lunchtime and I went to the bathroom and I saw them sat on the side on the basin, and it was like, oh no. And yeah, he'd cut his toenails with them. Yeah, I did cry. He didn't quite understand why I cried, but I did cry because I knew I'd probably never be able to replace them again. They were gone, they'd had it, you know, they were really destroyed. And yeah, and I haven't been able to replace them. So if you know of any really nice, delicate embroidery scissors, then that would be fantastic. I do use a gold handled pair of stalk scissors, and I've been using those for years and they're brilliant, but these were so much finer. I did find some online and they just broke. They weren't as durable. So yeah, so he knows, you know, what I'm like. I do look after all my things because everything has a cost, and things that you get that you really love using, probably say you can't replace them if something happens. Anyway, so just to say, I was sewing with my sewing machine, not this one of my other ones, and I think sewing machines have personalities. This is where I'm going to sound really strange. I think sewing machines are personalities because when you sew on something, you know the sound of your machine and you know what it's going to do before it does something, because some of them, they just don't like to do things, and you'll get to know its quirks. So I was sewing with this machine and it made this noise and I was like, oh no, oh, that doesn't sound good, and it completely broke. I was like, oh gosh, okay. So I phoned up the dealer and I said, right, okay, I need to send it in to be mended. And she said, well, email you the address. And I said, right. And I said to my other half, you know, I don't want it to go by courier. And now he knows what I'm like, obviously, through the scissors. And he said, right, well, he said, I'll take you. Where does it need to go? He said, we can take it. Now, there's nothing wrong with couriers. It's just me. I don't like to, these are so precious to me. I don't like to leave them at my site. I want to deliver it and I want to pick it up. So he said, I'll get the box out ready. So I said, right. And he started to box it up. And yeah, the email came through and I had a date to take it as well. But it was 6 hours away driving. So he's like, okay, well, you know, we'll make a day of it. He's so good. Anyway, got it all in the box, got the car, went to put it in the box, and there was no way it was going in. Absolutely no way. The boxes were huge. So I said, well, we'll have to have it on the back seat. And I don't do this because this is just what I did just to get it where it needed to be. But, you know, it has a box for a reason. But we couldn't get it in the car. So I threaded the seatbelt through it, and I put cushions in the middle of it to support the middle. I put wads of fabric under the foot and put the needle down, and I sat in the middle seat with the belt on, and I just hugged it all the way to where it needed to go. And then 2 weeks later we had to go redo the trip to pick it up. Unfortunately, it was fine. But thinking about it was, if I didn't have him to take me, because 12 hours is a lot of driving in one day, and I couldn't stop over because I had the dogs, so I had to arrange for somebody to come in and let the dogs out and give them water, whatever. It was a bit of a performance. So if I didn't have him, I would have had to have sent it by courier, and it was a massive box, so what would it have cost me? I would have just had to have let it gone. But I hadn't considered that ever happening. Now, I've had lots of machines over so many years, and I'm very lucky, touch wood, I've never had one break, but these things do happen, hence why we have our warranties. But yeah, I don't know what I would have done. It would have had to have gone by courier. Is that something that you've considered? And I would suggest asking whoever you buy it from, where does this machine go for servicing? So you absolutely know up front. And then you can keep in mind whether it's going to go by courier or whether you're going to drive it somewhere. Now, most of my machines now are out of warranty, and I've got a local man that comes to the house and he'll service them for me. So moving forwards, at the moment, I'm in my happy space with all the machines, and I've got somebody who can come in and do it for me. But if I was to buy again, that would be a really big question that I would want to know, because I know that my machines are not going by courier. For all sorts of reasons. But yeah, I do have a question as well. For my business, I've got the Single Needle Brother VR. I had a car accident again 6 weeks ago, and I've got a herniated disc on my neck and all sorts of things. So I've got problems with this arm. I can't change the threads very easily. It's really painful, so not something I'm going to be doing. One design, when I digitize it, can have at least 26 thread changes, and on a single needle that's way too intensive for my arm. So I am thinking of, I'm going to have to upgrade to a Brother PR or Excellence. I need at least a 10 spool. It's the cost I haven't actually figured in my journey, my business, because it's so young. It's like, oh my goodness, you know, I've got more expense. I thought I was there with everything. I'm perfectly happy. And then this comes sort of completely from the side and I didn't see it. I'm lucky that I've got a lot of stock built up, so I don't need to worry for a minute, although obviously it is a big consideration, it is a big worry, and if you could subscribe, that would be fantastic, because I'd like to get monetized. So if you've used a bigger Brother machine, please put in your comments below, because again, I'd like to ask and get my research in, and then I'll be doing videos of that journey. So if you'd like to follow that and you're subscribed, you'll get the notifications of that. We've also got the, the Cricut machines. I said we've got the vinyl cutters, we've got the new Venture, which I haven't even turned on yet. We've got sublimation, we've got the heat presses. I've got the embroidery cap accessory for the VR, so if you'd like a video with that as well, it's really good. And there's a project running that I started a year ago covering North Devon. It's an embroidery project where we're doing a big fundraiser for the hospice and something for the museum, and it's embroidery based. So if you're into embroidery, whether it be hand embroidery, machine embroidery, you might find that really, really interesting. So yeah, anyway, I'm gonna go. Thank you for being so patient. I hope all those points are things that you will consider and help you on your journey, and please leave in the comments the machine that you bought and that you love it, because I'd love to hear that you've got your happy machine. Anyway, take care. Thank you very much. Bye bye.